You ever think the person you kicked out might be the one holding the key to everything you lost? Yeah, I learned that the hard way. The day my mom, Martha, left our house, it was so quiet you could hear her suitcase wheels scraping the pavement all the way down the street. She didn't say a word, didn't need to. Her silence said everything. That was the sound I remember most. Now, let me back up a sec. Me name's Derek, and I'll be the first to admit I wasn't the best son. Not by a long shot. That afternoon, I stood there in the doorway, arms folded, feeling like a big man, while my wife Tanya hovered behind me, wearing that look she got when she finally thought she'd won. The house felt cold, even though the sunlight was sneaking through the cracks in the blinds, all the warmth sucked out by the things we didn't say. Tanya's voice cut through the air. "We can't keep carrying your mama. Derek, it's just not fair." And you know what? I didn't say a thing. I didn't defend the woman who raised me alone after my dad died, who cleaned motels and skipped dinners so I could have booked for school. Instead, I just told her, "You got to figure it out on your own, Ma. We have our own kids now." That was it. No hug, no thank you, nothing but the echo of her leaving. She didn't look back, not when she crossed the yard, not when she disappeared at the corner. She just kept walking, suitcase in hand, and sat down on an old bench 3 streets away, the kind that's been baked by sun and rain so long it's warped. She sat, 72 years old, watching cars pass, holding back tears that I'd never see. Truth was, she hadn't been fired from her job like I'd thought. She'd quit because her body just couldn't do it anymore. The doctor had told her one wrong lift, and she could be laid up for good. She walked away from the only steady thing she had left, and then I pushed her further away. But what I didn't know, what no one in our family knew, was that Martha had a secret. Decades ago, when my dad died in a work accident, the insurance paid out just enough to keep us afloat. But there was this deed, this patch of useless land out in the country that everyone told her to sell. It was all rocks, wild grass, no water, nothing but taxes. Year after year, she paid them scraping by, always holding on just in case. Then, last fall, a young guy in a suit knocked on her door. Turns out, some big developer needed that land for a solar farm. Offered her a number so big she had to sit down before she answered. But Martha, always quiet, made the deal private, set up a trust with the church, never said a word to anyone. The whole time she was just Mama Martha, apron tied around her waist, purse practically empty except inside that purse was a bank card linked to over $1 million. Yeah, you heard me right, $1.4 million. So that first night, while I thought she was lost somewhere, Martha spent the night at a women's shelter. Not because she needed Tosh, just wanted to be around people who knew what it felt like to have nothing. She sat with them, shared food, listened, smiled when others couldn't. The next day, she walked out and bought herself a tiny, run-down cottage on the edge of town. Paid cash, got it fixed up, had it registered under a different name. No one knew it was hers. She started building something new, but not out of revenge, not her style. She wanted to create a place where no one would ever get thrown away again. Fast forward 2 years. My life, it tanked. The house, her house, the one she'd signed over to me, ended up in foreclosure. I tried side gigs, warehouse shifts, quick money schemes, but none of it stuck. Tanya left with the kids, said she couldn't do it anymore. I found myself crashing on a friend's basement cot, staring at a library flyer that caught my eye. Martha's Table Community Meals, Shelter, Support for Families. That name, man, it hit me like a punch. Martha? It couldn't be, but I had to know. So the next morning, I walked across town and found this place. It wasn't fancy fresh paint, sunflowers by the door, a sign carved by hand. Inside, the smell of soup and fresh bread filled the air, laughter from the kitchen, volunteers moving from room to room like they belonged. And there she was, me mother, behind the reception desk, cardigan soft, hair grayer, but her eyes still sharp. She looked up and saw me. For a second, time stopped. I tried to talk, but all that came out was, "Mama, I lost the house. Tanya's gone. I got nothing left." I didn't know where else to go. She didn't scold. She just said, "Come in, you look cold." We sat at a little table, sunlight streaming in, and I asked her straight up, "This place, it's yours?" She nodded, smiling, like she'd been waiting for this moment. "I thought you had nothing. I said, my voice breaking. She told me she'd had peace and enough. That's all she ever wanted. When I pushed, asking why she never told me about the money, she just looked at Miral. I looked at me and asked, would it have changed anything? And honestly, I didn't know what to say. She told me, I wanted to see who'd stay when I had nothing to give. That's who you build for. Man, I broke down. I told her I was sorry, that I'd thrown her out. She just reached across and squeezed my hand. You forgot yourself, Derek, but you can always come back. That was it, no big lecture, just grace. That spring, I started volunteering there. I fixed furniture, washed dishes, did whatever needed doing. Slowly, my mom and I rebuilt what we'd lost, not just as mother and son, but as people who'd learned what it really meant to have nothing and to give everything. Every Friday at sunset, we'd sit under the porch roof and watch the kids playing, the world moving on around us. One night, she handed me a faded envelope. Inside was the deed to the house she'd given me, the voided check from the land, both framed, both reminders. You don't owe me anything, she said. But now you know what happens when love comes before pride. That hit me deep. For the first time, I saw her for who she really was, not just my mom, but a woman who'd built something huge out of pain, out of silence, out of hope. Years later, when Martha passed away peacefully, hundreds showed up for her funeral, people from every shelter, church, and food bank in the city, all with stories about her kindness. No headlines, no gold caskets, just a crowd full of people who'd felt her warmth. I stood in front of them, her old apron in my hands, and tried to sum up her whole life in one sentence. My mother left this house once with nothing but a suitcase and a quiet heart, and she built an empire of forgiveness. Behind me, carved into wood above the door, were her words, the doors that close behind you can't compare to the ones you open for others. So yeah, that's my story. The story of a woman who was cast out but chose to build, not burn. The story of how kindness can outlast betrayal, how forgiveness can remake a man. And if you're wondering, Derek, the guy who once closed the door, became the man she always believed he could be. All because she picked love over revenge every single time. Now, before you go, I want to know, what do you think? Was Martha right to keep her secret? Should family always come before pride? Or is there a line you can't uncross? Drop your thoughts below. Let's talk about justice, about community, about what we owe each other when the world turns cold. You never know whose story you might be living next.